Welcome to today's podcast. My name is Dr. Daniel Martinez, child and adolescent and adult psychiatrist, and I've been doing this for 25 years. In this episode, we will talk about how I became a psychiatrist. What is a psychiatrist? Where does a psychiatrist come from? Do psychiatric meds really work? My dad was so concerned when I told him that I was going to become a psychiatrist. He said, I heard these side effects are worse than the illness itself. And don't patients just end up like zombies on these medicines? He was not sure that he liked the idea. We can never be completely sure of anything, except perhaps maybe our mortality. Accepting a new job, having a baby, getting married, staying single, moving, buying a house, life is all about taking risk. But that's why I'm so passionate about what I do. We all need to take measured risk. I have spent my career on being respectful and always saying to my patients, I am not here to tell you what to do. I am here to help you consider the risks and benefits. In other words, the pros and cons of all the options available, including the option of not doing anything at all. We're all evolving, all trying to become happier, healthier human beings. I've continued to refine how I go about living my days. It has been a great road, a changing road, a challenging road, a winding road, a beautiful road for sure. So how do I know that I'm doing the right path or I'm on the right path? I'm not absolutely sure, ever. We can never be sure. I love talking about mystery. We need commitment. That's the number one thing. We need to have commitment towards something. A colleague of mine once asked me why my kids were going to go to school and what they were going to study. In fact, one colleague asked one of my kids what they wanted to do when they grew up. And to my surprise, I was eavesdropping, and my kid said, I'm not exactly sure what my dad does, but I guess I'll become a psychiatrist. My colleague was surprised, and then he asked my child, why would you want to do that? And my child says, I'm not sure what my dad really does, but he's always happy. So that was something so beautiful to my heart. I love sharing that. So let me tell you about my story of how I ended up doing what I'm doing and how my dream is now to transform the state of mental health nationwide. But I can't do it alone. That's why I started this podcast. It's going to be you and me together. How are we going to do it? I'm not exactly sure about that either. But I know we'll find a way. We'll figure it out. Things always work out. I like sayings. How about this one? Where there is a why, there is a how. So let's get to work. Why do I want to transform the state of mental health? Well, just take a look at your news reports. Things are a mess. They've been a mess for a long time. And how will we do it? I said we'll figure it out because it's magical. It's a magical road. I feel it. I have always felt it. It's always been magic, and I have no doubt that I'm going to get there. Call it magic, call it destiny, call it faith, miracles, gusto, gumption, persevere. Call it a dreamer's mind. When I was in high school, I gravitated towards the technical jobs. I started thinking about the idea that I was going to go become a machinist because that's what my dad did. Making tools, adjusting tools, making machines, create certain springs. He worked at a spring factory all of his adult life. And he went to school only till the third grade, and I think my mom did too, just till third grade. So I grew up in inner city Chicago in a neighborhood where no one really knew white-collar individuals. So the trade schools looked to be like the thing that I was destined to do. In fact, you just kind of grow up. I was intrigued at that time by machines and tools. Those were the 1980s. That was the time of a technological boom. We were in high school just starting to see computers for the first time, taking DOS programming. My technical field very quickly evolved and it became CNC machining. Computer numeric controls. You program a machine that then creates the product where we don't have to be getting overly involved. I thought I was going to do that. So I was planning on attending my local community college when it all changed for me. And here goes the magic, the miracle, the divine intervention, serendipity. Call it whatever you want. In some ways, my story sounds impossible. I didn't become a machinist. I became college educated. How did that happen? I have no idea. Hard work for sure, but hard work and a disciplined, a principled life. My life has been kind of uncomplicated because I've always been steering away from trouble. But looking back, the key ingredients to my success were tenacity, discipline, flexibility, willingness to be coached, integrity, and hope. This was one of my many forks in the road. I had to make a decision. Do I go to college, community college, or do I go to the university? So that's how everything changed for me. I went to university. In due time, I hope to learn from you. How did things change for you? What kind of forks have you had to encounter in your road? Reflecting on this is what this podcast is all about. And so I'm going to tell you what happened to me. One day I want to hear what happened to you. So thinking the year was 1985, the summer between my junior and senior year of high school. I was 17 years old, having fun, enjoying life, working, dreaming, carefree, and careless. So I had a horrible car accident for going over the speed limit. I ran a car into a ditch. My two friends and I passed out, and when we opened our eyes, we were in a hospital. Severe concussions. I was feeling confused about life and the decisions that I had to make. I had some peers planning to go to college, but most of us in my community were just planning on getting a regular job. I was recovering from my accident and continuing to make sense, but really feeling this sense of existential angst, which is not uncommon for young people, and not knowing my place in life. And then I met someone through church who encouraged me to go to college. He was a great guy, still is a great guy. Bruce is his name. But I was planning a technical job, remember? I was thinking about that. I was thinking about a technical job when Bruce kind of came into my life, and he said, "Hey, Dan, you're kind of sharp. You should go to college." But I said, "No, thank you. I hate school." But his encouraging words left me thinking. And so I started and continued with my senior year, and I went back to him a few months later and said, maybe I should go to college. And he said, yeah, I'd be happy to mentor you. But if you're going to want me to mentor you, you have to go to counseling. And I said, counseling? I might be Mexican, but I'm not a gangbanger. I don't do drugs. What he said next changed my entire life. And he said, I'm not saying you're a bad person. What I am saying is that we all have garbage in our heads. I couldn't argue with that one. So I agreed. I started counseling. And I have kept going to counseling all those years since back then. It's now 38, maybe 39 years that I have gone to counseling without interruption. Can you believe that? Even I can't believe that, but it's true. So it's been a wonderful, wonderful path. So it's not difficult for me to decide that I was going to go to enroll at the University of Illinois at Chicago. And so I went in with the idea that I was going to major in mechanical engineering. I got myself enrolled. I started my first year in engineering. And I also went to live in a fraternity type of home. The name was Casa Claret. And I soon discovered in myself that engineering wasn't the thing for me. I neither enjoyed it nor was very successful in the classes. So then I thought about biology. I took sciences in high school, and I thought biology was kind of technical. So I started putting all that together, and I took a couple of classes. But everything changed again when, in my first year of university, I took a Common Core, Psychology 101. And then, at that point, everything turned for me. It was like a light bulb came on. I decided to think about a major in psychology. And my mentor, Bruce, who was supporting me all along the way, suggested that I switch from a public school to a private school. Now thinking back, I think it was the fact that it was a Catholic university, and more so that there was going to be more philosophy and spirituality that I'd get exposed to in an environment like that. And it was great. I did it, and I just kept moving forward. But since I had already taken a few technical courses, I thought that I was now going to major in psychology and minor in biology, and I continued. Towards finishing my college years, I discovered that psychology was really the field that kind of came easy for me. It was interesting, exhilarating, and very thought-provoking. It was like a perfect match for me. And now the story turns again. I think of these forks in the road really happened to everybody. Somehow in my junior year of my being at the University, DePaul University, I did a psychology internship. I'm not exactly sure how I ended up there, but I ended up at St. Mary's Hospital in Chicago. And I met 4 psychiatrists that really inspired me. So I did psychology, but listening to those guys and their case discussions was out of this world. I felt like I had like it was a heavenly experience. So I said to myself, when I grow up, I want to be just like these guys. And so that's how it happened for me, that I started thinking about medical school. I thought about that, and then I decided to make an appointment with my pre-med advisor. And so I went to look for him, made an appointment, and when my day came, I went to my appointment. And within just a few minutes, he said, "What makes you, Dan, think that you can get into medical school? Don't you know only 17,000 of over 40,000 applicants get the privilege of attending medical school here in the United States?" By the time he said that, I was trying to feel myself flushed, tearful, kind of irritated, kind of sad. And then all I wanted to do was to walk out of my pre-med advisor's office, stumbling my way down a hall and seeing a door open. It happened to be the door to my biology teacher, Dr. Cohn. And Dr. Cohn was in his office with the door open, so I decided to walk in. He saw me tearful, kind of distressed, and it was like the perfect thing that I needed at that moment. I sat in his office, and then he gave me words of encouragement. He told me not to let anybody rob me of my dreams. I am forever grateful to Dr. Cohn, not letting anybody rob me of my dreams. His kindness that day gave me the courage to try at least. So I'm forever thankful. In fact, I'm so thankful that I stay in touch with people. I'm going to see him for lunch probably in 2 weeks. These are experiences that I had 40 years ago, and I'm still keeping in touch with all these individuals. I continue in touch with Bruce. I am in touch with Dr. Cohn and many other people who have come into my life because I felt so much love from them towards me. And I realized that that's been the essence of my life, staying in touch with the people that I love. It's so important for our mental health. Stay close to the people that lift us and get away as far as you can to the people that will not promote goodness, particularly goodness in your life. And I realized that my life really has been about that. Every patient that I see, every podcast that I do, all the people that I work with, it's about transmitting love. And the dream is to transform the state of mental health through love. So let's get back to my story. As I was contemplating medical school, I went back to my father, who was a blue-collar worker, working at a factory, still thinking about my life could have been easier if I would have just become a technician somewhere in a factory and continued moving forward. I switched to engineering. First tool and die, then engineering, then biology, then psychology, now medical school. Can you imagine? I talking to my dad. I've changed my career choice 5 times in 4 years. My dad was starting to react to all this. And he said, "Oh my God, here we go again. Changing your mind, can't commit to anything." And he had kind of given up on me. No, he never gave up on me. He was a great dad. But it was so impressive that they never outwardly said anything to put me down or to rob me of my dreams. So, Mom and Dad, thank you for inspiring me to work as hard as I've ever worked and to always hold on to hope. So I started studying for the MCATs. MCATs is the entrance exam for medical school. I think in the past I was never very good at academics, and sure enough, this was very difficult. It ended up being that I didn't think that I could get into medical school, so I had to create a plan B. Of course, my MCAT came in the 25th percentile, just like the rest of the things in my life, always kind of floundering between 25th and 50th percentile. I don't think I told you. In high school, I got an 18 on my ACT, and a nephew a few years ago said, Uncle Dan, a monkey should be able to get an 18. It's okay, you can laugh. Dear nephew, you may be right, but just keep working hard, and the road and the path will open for you. So, yeah, I kind of knew my aptitude. I took the GRE, and I applied to social work, and I did get into the School of Social Work. I got into University of Illinois School of Social Work. Jane Addams is the founder of the field of social work here in Chicago. So I was going in all directions, and I was interested in a lot of things. And so I think that my flexibility is really the key to success, not getting hung up on any one thing. Life is meant to be lived, no matter what life brings you. Make the most of it. So my energy and my discipline, my joy for life and my love for service, I think really has made the difference, a huge difference in my life. I was accepted to the School of Social Work. I look forward to maybe one day doing a podcast out of Hull House. Hull House is where Jane Addams used to house homeless people, or so I have been told. That must have been probably 100 years ago. But that's the story of how I started studying for my MCATs. I ended up getting accepted into medical school. I went to Loyola. Wow, medical school was it's even hard to believe after all these years. I feel overwhelmed with gratitude when I think about my past and all the things that have come my way. What Loyola saw in me, looking back, I think that it's the willingness to serve, the joy with which I live my life. So I started my career and I started medical school with the hope of becoming a licensed physician and specializing in psychiatry, working with patients in hospitals. I knew that I was passionate about continuing to learn, about continuing the field of psychology, about service. So to talk about medical school would be an entire podcast, but there are a few things that I need to say because it's so important, and I'd rather err on the side of safety and repeat them over and over rather than neglect to share. For now, let's keep an eye on people that inspire you because that's going to come very helpful. I always felt that the teachers and the preceptors in our life can fuel our flame, or they can really blow out whatever desire that we may have. At one point in medical school, I was even thinking about becoming an otorhinolaryngologist. Can you say that? That's an ear, nose, throat doctor, because that rotation really inspired me. But everything in medical school was beautiful, and I'm sure I would have loved any field. I decided to stick with becoming a psychiatrist, a doctor studying the brain. But medical school had a lot of ups and downs. I started medical school, and within the first month, I took a test that I failed, and it was a biochemistry test. And that was a very scary moment. It was probably within the first month or two of medical school. And then the dean called me to his office. And the dean said something that hurt. Dan, I know why you failed. It's your background. You're not cut out for this rigor of study. This is not your culture. You are educationally disadvantaged. You lack the appropriate social supports to help you be successful, and on and on and on. At some point, I remember I stopped listening. All I wanted was to leave his office. I recall walking out of the office, exiting the building, trying to find the nearest door to get out. And then there was a bench where I sat and I cried until I had no more tears to shed. I must have sat there for probably 2 hours. The bench is still there. I've taken medical students. I've taken family members. I've taken people, as I share this story, to sit on that bench. And I made a commitment to myself that I was going to work harder than anybody from that moment on. I was going to stay longer than anyone else in the library every single day. I would stay until the janitors kicked me out at night closing. And I lived like that for an entire 4 years, working and striving more than anybody else. And it's amazing how I put more effort than I even knew I had. But those were hard days. There was something gorgeous in them because I learned so much. I grew up. I matured so much. And I think there is another beautiful saying, faith will set you free and you are unstoppable. Let's fast forward to my third year in medical school. The clinical rotations, I told you about the ear, nose, throat experience. I had the great fortune in my third year of medical school of being assigned to the greatest teacher that I ever had in terms of a professional life. His name was Dr. Ray Robertson. In fact, I have always called him my professional father. And then people in my community, mental health care community, know me as Ray's disciple. I couldn't ask for a greater name. I feel so proud of that. So he was a doctor that graduated medical school in 1945. Can you believe that? That's 80 years ago. With the life that may have been coming on. That was World War II era. In fact, he told me many stories about all that. But he was a student of Fritz Perls. I have heard that Fritz Perls was a student of Sigmund Freud. Imagine the connection. So I stayed with Ray Robertson, and I did a lot of great work under him. In 1993 was when I first met him, and then I was hoping to go to another school to do my residency in psychiatry, but I decided to stay at Loyola for the reason that I just wanted to be close to Ray Robertson, and I stayed close to him since then until his death. It was a beautiful thing. Keep in mind, the most important thing is to think of who has problems. Everybody has problems. But when we get the appropriate help, we will be able to manage our problems. Thank you very much for having joined me in this time. If you like what you've heard, please give me a like, link it, and look down for other connections to other content that we might have. And don't forget to subscribe. Thank you for joining me today. Take good care. My name is Dr. Daniel Martinez.